Go ahead and call this meeting to order. If you will, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let the record reflect that all board members are present this evening, and I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. McNeil?
Yes.
Ms. McAdams?
Yes.
Ms. Romerman?
Yes.
Mr. Reyes?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. The consent agenda, all of the following items, those items of a routine nature normally approved at board meetings, will be approved by one vote unless any board member desires to have a separate vote on any or all of these items. The consent agenda consists of the discussion, consideration, and action on the following items. Those items are listed as items A through O.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Reyes?
Yes.
Ms. Romerman?
Yes.
Ms. McAdams?
Yes.
Dr. McNeil?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Under information reports, USPA report, UCTA report.
President Kinnear, Dr. Hartzler, members of the board, UCTA is gearing up for the upcoming legislative session. Our legislative committee is meeting next week, and we are planning on sending members to the Capitol to lobby for public education. And we would also like to thank Dr. Hartzler and his cabinet for sending out this survey about summer pay and what teachers would prefer. So we appreciate that.
Good, thank you. Under hearings and correspondence, are there any communications? Anyone signed up to speak? Business agenda. Under instruction, first reading of the proposed 2023-2024 school calendar. Dr. Hartzler.
Thank you, President Kinnear. Board members, it doesn't even seem like it's time again to be talking about next year's calendar. These years seem to roll by very quickly, but we are at that time where we need to go ahead and present to our patrons and the parents a proposed calendar for 2023-24. I will tell you that some years we're able to put forth two proposals, and even sometimes we've done three before. But with this school calendar, it was just one of those unique years after gathering a lot of input from our faculty and from staff. I'm pleased to be able to really only present one proposal to our parents and staff to review. This is for a first reading, so we will put this out on the web and then also make sure that everyone has an opportunity to weigh in on it over the next month. But really, it's very similar to what we had this year, and I think for the most part, folks were pleased with how the first semester went, even with some of the changes in terms of at the start of the year with kickoff and so forth. We did incorporate 2 virtual days at the advice of Ms. Calvin and Mr. Federline and the teaching and learning team. We felt like that we needed to keep this in our calendar because certainly it is something that is not going to go away. We know that. And so we will have a virtual day in October of next year's if this is the calendar that ultimately is approved by the board, and then we'll have another virtual day in April as well. All the other breaks that we are recommending are the same, such as we would have the week of Thanksgiving off, and then also 2 weeks for the winter break as well. Obviously with some snow days built into the calendar, and other than that, Ideally, we would love to be able to say instructionally we could balance out the first semester and the second semester, but I'm not so sure a rocket scientist would be able to figure that one out. We've tried to do that for many, many years. If anything, we have balanced them out to some degree, but not as much as we would like to. But we could do that, but probably much to the chagrin of a lot of our teachers and our students by saying, let's maybe start school the first day of August. And I don't think that would be a very popular thing to propose. So be happy to answer any questions that you all might have. Of course, again, I'll remind you that this is the first reading, so we'll give our patrons and our staff, our parents and our staff, as well as the students, a month here to look over the calendar and offer their suggestions, and then I will bring this back, or one similar to it, based on the feedback or recommendations that we receive in February for a final approval.
Any comments, questions, discussion? All right, no action required on this, so we'll move on to school operations. And Dr. Hartzler, if you could give us an update on the 2023 bond issuances.
Be happy to do that. We, as you know, there have been a lot of hands on this proposition that we are proposing in February, and I want to again reiterate the amount of collaboration and dialogue that have occurred in this process. This is something that Mr. Bushyhead and Dr. Robinson and his team start on the operational side of things, literally going out to every school site, and I would almost venture to say probably every room, evaluating the conditions of the site. This is something that they've been doing, I know, for the last probably 2 years. Along with the input from the site bond task force, and then ultimately we bring that forward to the district bond issue task force, and that is how we really kind of arrive at this proposition. And very pleased so far with how things are going. As you know, I always call this our tour when we get back from winter break, because truly we hit the ground running in it, and that's been the case. I really think every day last week, from early morning to late evening, we were presenting, and we'll do that between now and February 14th. But so far, all is going very well. Like to, again, since we are in our public board meeting, remind our voters that we are able to do this and not raise taxes above our traditional levels, and so that is something that I hope that they are happy with. I don't think I need to educate those of us that are in attendance this evening, but I will for the public that may be viewing this, that in Oklahoma, bond issues are absolutely vital to our existence, and it's just the nature of where we're at right now in Oklahoma in terms of our per pupil funding is last in the region, 47th in the nation, and again, as Dr. Williams reminds me of repeatedly, that if we were just to be at the regional average in Oklahoma, that would mean $1,800 more per student. That would mean Union Public Schools each year would have an additional 23, I'll say to 27 million new dollars each and every year. And that would go a long ways in terms of funding a lot of our operational needs, and certainly also paying our teachers and our support employees more than we do. But in the meantime, we're going to continue to be hopeful, and that someday we'll be able to address that very serious issue, in my opinion. But in the meantime, it is absolutely vital that we continue to rely on these general obligation bonds. And again, just as a reminder, this will be our second time we've done a 5-year series bond. We're very pleased, I think, with the last one that we had, and so moving forward, I hope people get out and vote and certainly get educated on the importance of what this bond issue is about. There's another thing, too, I'd like to mention about this bond issue, and that is something that is also being developed under the direction of Dr. Todd Nelson and Teaching and Learning. And that is, let me remind all of us that we are in the process of doing a redraft of our district strategic plan. And the neat thing about this, Dr. Nelson and I were talking about this today, it really, I think, is a distinguishing feature of Union Public Schools. And I think that is probably why academically we are really making some tremendous strides with our students. And of course also closing the disproportionate achievement gaps that we know exist within our school and in all schools. But our strategic plan runs parallel to this bond plan or this bond proposal, and that is really nice because I think both of them really complement each other, and if anything, it allows us to kind of keep us in our lanes. And I've often said that the importance of a strategic plan is that it takes pockets of excellence and then of course creates a system of excellence. And I think certainly since 2013, when we launched our first one, the first 5-year strategic plan, I think it has definitely served us very well. But that is something, the first order of business is of course hopefully being successful with our bond issue on February the 14th, and then Dr. Nelson will bring the redraft of our strategic plan back to us sometime this semester. We don't quite know exactly because we're still working through the voluminous amounts of data that we've received and feedback that we've received from our stakeholders, including our students, our teachers, our parents, and of course OU Tulsa is helping us really kind of sift through all that data to create some strong narratives for us to march forward with. But again, we're not looking at a total redo or a total transformation of the strategic plan. It's really what I call a redraft. I don't think at all anyone has any interest of deviating from our mission, which is 100% graduation, college and career ready, and certainly our values have served us very well. But there are goals and objectives that, of course, we need to rewrite and reconsider. That's important with any strategic plan, is to make sure that it is a living document for us to really live and work and to go by. So, but be happy to answer any questions that you have. There's a lot of moving pieces and parts to not only the bond issue, but also this strategic plan. It really is something that I can say this, that I'm very proud of, that as a district we have embraced and that we have lived by, because I think our students, first and foremost, are reaping some huge dividends from this work.
So in our former times, I mean, this was the norm every year. We'd come back from break and we're immediately talking about the bond proposals, the issuance, and so it was very commonplace for all of our parents. I think everybody was well versed throughout the school system, the importance of this. Because we now are doing every 5 years, some of that institutional recurring knowledge could easily be lost. And so it's please, 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 if you don't have the answers to the importance of this, point them to us. We'll be happy to talk about it. But I would tell you, you are in the better position, the best position to have those conversations. And I would just remind that Dr. Hartzler alluded to the way state funding works. The question I will always get is, well, how in the world can you be lobbying for all of this money and be where you're at with respect to teachers' pay and operating needs? And it's quite simply the way funding works. The bond programs provide our capital funding, pure and simple. That's the only way that it's allowed. And if we don't have the bonds to take care of the capital needs, all of a sudden we're putting a burden on the operating funds that further takes away from the availability of those funds. So if you don't get anything else out of the reason for this, it's the way our state funding works. Capital needs are through the bond. Operating and salaries are through the operating budget. We have to have capital to take care of those things so that we don't infringe upon the operating fund.
Well said, and just to complement that, with our budget, roughly 88 to 90% of our general fund is already dedicated to salary and benefits. So as you could imagine, that roughly $10 million on a $100 million general fund would not go very far when you consider all the needs and requests that Dr. Robinson brings forward to Mr. Bushyhead on, I'm sure, a regular basis, of which I might add you're taking to him, and then he's just presenting, he's just the messenger. Is that right? So, yeah. Well said.
Any other questions, comments?
One other thing, when you were talking about making sure our folks are educated, I applaud Chris Payne and his team. They put together a amazing bond flyer this time around. Something that we did, and Chris, we did this last time because I had to think about this as I get a little older, but I don't think we publicize it as much. But we have included a QR code in these really nice bond flyers. So if you do come across someone that might have a question about the bond issue, or as Mr. Kinnear alluded to, might not quite understand how we can't collude bond dollars along with general operating costs and so forth, we have a QR code that they can scan and submit their questions to Mr. Payne, his team, and then from there he will disseminate out to those of us that would be happy to address those questions. So.
I was going to comment on you mentioned the 5 years. You mentioned the 5 years. We have a lot of new staff this year that haven't been through this, and so educating them on that also. But one of the things that hit home with one of the staff meetings I was at the other day, I see Susan Pettit here. We've run several days where we have 0 spare buses. So if one breaks down, we're now rerouting people. Those are fun mornings for Susan. If you have the radio, you can sense the excitement. But you take it, a new bus, for example, is 3 teachers. So we have to have a new bus. Without the bond, we're going to have to pay for that out of general fund. And so very important to remember that when you do that number, just little things like that, simple things that you think of, is going to have a huge impact on our ability to hire teachers. So it's critical.
And February 14th, right? That's
That is the day.
election day. Very good. And item number 2, under school operations, consider and take action on an additional blanket purchase order for additional foods from Ben E. Keith in the amount of $200,000 from Child Nutrition Fund.
Yes, President Kinnear, Board, Dr. Hartzler, really has become a routine process for us as we go and we try to find food. Benny Keith is a distributor for us, and so they provide us a lot of different items, and just asking to renew that, create a new PO so we can order more food.
Move for approval. Second.
Ms. Romerman,
Yes.
Mr. Reyes,
Yes.
Ms. McAdams.
Yes.
Dr. McNeil.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Next item, consider and take action on a renewal agreement with Scenario Learning, DBA Vector Solutions for Safe Schools, Online Employee Safety and Compliance Training, and Safe Schools Alert System, currently utilized by the district in the amount of $40,695.50 from bond funds. Mr. Wardlow.
President Kinnear, Board, Dr. Hartzler. Safe Schools, from the training aspect, is something that all our employees look forward to every year. They get the training. Up to this point, this year we've done 19,000 actual trainings. We did a little different this year. Normally we'll roll it out like every 3 to 4 months and kind of give a little time for them to actually do it. This time we did it at the beginning of the year so they can take all school year to complete it. So the majority of everyone has done that. We have a few people that we still have to track down. This system allows you to know exactly who has not done their training, what site, and things of that nature. So we track them down, and we normally get compliance by the end of the year. The Safe School Alert System is something that's vital to my department. It allows us to get anonymous tips, things that's going on in the schools, and that has been great. Since I've been here, well, since 2013 or 14, we've had 1,182 Safe School Alerts. Some of those have been spam, like we'll get calls for people like, can you open up a school so I can get my book? Those don't count. But true ones that we've had have been 741, and those range from bullying to safety, just suicide threats, somebody scared to come to school. So we get those. Those come through my office. My administrative assistant sends those out to the principal, to operations, whatever the problem is, and also to their supervisors. The principals will work them, operations will work them, technology will work them, clear them, and that's how we stay on top of this. And if you look through the years, like 17, 18, after a school shooting in Florida, we had a rash of fake calls. That year we had 318, and it stemmed from that. This year, valid calls, we only had 48 thus far, so it varies, but it's a very valuable resource that we have. Any questions?
Move for approval.
Second.
Dr. McNeil,
Yes.
Mr. Reyes,
Yes.
Ms. McAdams,
Yes.
Ms. Romerman,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any new business? Again, anyone signed up to speak?
If I could, thank you. We, as you all know, we do this every month. We have members of our leadership cadre in attendance this evening. So if you would, when I call your name, please stand and let's hold our applause until they all have been recognized, and then we'll congratulate them. So Tiffany Wardlow. So very good. I was going to say Mr. Wardlow's best half, and we know that to be true. Is definitely right. Lauren Crow, Jennifer Fisher, and of course Kurt Frenzel. You've got to stand. Your name's on here, of course. Good job. Well, congratulations. I think you've started something, so I would expect you to be here every month. So I do have one other thing. I would like to just certainly take a moment to appreciate our board members. I want to just say this. I didn't really prepare any statements. I'm not going to because you know how important you all are, and what my thoughts are in terms of your servant-minded heart and leadership. It's unfortunate that the public doesn't get to work and get to know these folks as close or as much as I do, but I could not ask for a finer board as part of my job to work with. We do not always agree, believe it or not, and that is okay. But the amount of respect that is shown among the board and certainly in our working relationship is I could not ask for a better board. So I want to thank each and every one of you for everything that you do. You pour your hearts into this role, and certainly make no mistake that our kids, our students are their number one priority, of course along with our staff as well. But there is no question about the decisions that they have to make. They're not always easy sometimes, as we all know. We've experienced over the last few years with the pandemic. But always they were doing it with the purest of heart, and keeping our kids' mind, and also our staff in mind, and certainly trying to do the best that we all can. So really, on behalf of all 2,000 of our employees, I just want to say thank you to each of you for all that you do. So.
Very humbled by those comments. Thank you. Any other comments that you all would like to make?
Thank you.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? We are adjourned.